Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey everyone, welcome to the discussion for 11, the Football Manager board game. I got my little trophy here because I won the city championship and against my rivals. So basically I did this as the solo variant because one, all of the people in my gaming group don't have any interest in soccer, and two, everywhere I saw, people were saying that this is best solo anyway because you basically don't affect any other player the entire time. So I was like, okay, cool. I'll do this solo. And this was a game that was actually on my anticipated list a few years ago, just because I really like the idea. It's like, yeah, I'm not the biggest soccer fan. Last time I saw, I watched a game of soccer and cared about it was 8 years ago when they did the World Cup in Germany. Or not, they didn't do it in Germany. When they had the World Cup and Germany won, I actually happened to be in Germany at the time, and that was amazing. Because my whole family on my mom's side is German and actively lives there. So, it was an awesome experience, and watching the World Cup was great as well. But outside of that, I have not kept up with it at all. I don't watch local teams. I never personally played. So I basically backed this game because I liked the idea. This was essentially the equivalent to this game was similar to like when you were playing Madden and you would do like the franchise league where you would basically do this. This is the equivalent of that. You're not actually playing the games. You're the ones that are going out and drafting, getting players and doing board meetings and making decisions on who to cut and who to get in free agency. And I would say, if you enjoyed that, like if you would play Madden and do the franchise tag, or the franchise mode, at least in older Madden, new Madden sucks dog shit. If you enjoyed that aspect, then I think you would actually really like this game, regardless of it being soccer and not American football. Here's kind of where I'm at. I don't think this game is bad by any means. There's actually quite a bit of it that I like. What initially stops me from being like ecstatic about it, and I should have known based off this little icon right here. I should have known exactly that this problem was going to arise, and it's this. This rulebook is vague where it doesn't need to be vague and weirdly specific when it doesn't need to be, and it makes this game way more confusing than it actually needs to be. And I like to pride myself on understanding games, but whenever I'm learning, like I set this game up to just to learn it, like for the first time, and then I played through a couple rounds and I'm like, I had to sit there and study trying to figure out how the hell the matches work. And every time I ran through it, I was getting different scores, different goals. Until I was like, what the fuck is going on? The way that they used the example is awful. It's so bad. And it's like, yeah, that's not the biggest aspect of the game, but that's kind of what you're doing. Is everything you're doing is leading up to like you doing better in the match. Because that's a good chunk of points. That's 15 points if you're at the top of the leaderboard. And so it's like the examples that they gave just made it feel like it was so backwards, because like your opponent cards are like the reverse of yours. Like it's as if like, okay, like if I'm on this side, on the like watching the game, yeah, it makes sense to me. But then you see the card from also your side, and then but it's from their perspective, watching it, so it's like essentially backwards. But what their example was, is that their example used two of these cards. So they were like, oh, compare your left wing to their right wing. And whenever you're trying to learn it, you're thinking your left to their right. It's like, well, that doesn't, how am I even blocking that? It doesn't even make any sense. Until you have to kind of really be like, oh, your left to their right, your left is their right, which is how it should make That's how it should obviously make sense, but their examples are just so backwards, and their color coordination of being like, it was even showing left to right, where you're like, what, so I'm crossing? And then they're like, they use terminology, and I get it. Portal is I want to say a Polish company, so they're European. So obviously this is in their wheelhouse, but it's like, well, you didn't just sell it in Europe, you sold it to American, or not American, to non-European backers. So you're like not everyone's going to understand wings and zones and sections and forwards, midfields, and defenders. It's like, not everything is coherent like that. So whenever they're explaining, oh, you have nine zones, and you have, and you have to do 5 sections, it's like, what are the zones? Like, why am I doing only 5 if there's 9? Like, what am I comparing? And so, that is just, it's so bad that it becomes frustrating. And I even read through a forum, there was a thread on Board Game Geek of some guy, like, he posted that question, someone explained it to him, and then he was still like, you're not getting what I'm saying, but he just wasn't understanding how they were explaining it to him until eventually he was like, oh, their example in the book is backwards because they use 2 opponent cards. It's awful. And the rule book even uses other examples that I still am not 100% on, and I kind of just have to do the gamery thing and be like, well, other games do it, so that's kind of what they're probably doing. But they're like, oh, on your turn, you can do 1 of 6 basic actions. Here are the 6 basic actions. Okay, cool. But you can also do a paid action. Well, what's a paid action? Like, is that a free action? It's like, because the example is showing, like, their example in the book was, oh, you spend 2 of these production tokens or whatever they're called, and then you can activate a card, use a card ability, and then pay for that. It's like, is that why does that cost? But wait, isn't one of my basic actions to be able to use one of these cards? So is that actually not a basic action? Like, every time I use one of these, do I have to spend 2 cogs? And then also, why do I even have these cards that have actions? And that's not the case. That is just, if you want to do your basic action to use a card, you do that and exhaust it. But if you want to do an additional action, it does cost 2 of these. But the way that they call them paid actions is awful. It's a free action. But even then, that's kind of weird if they didn't want it to be a free action. It's not free, it costs 2 cogs, so it's like, okay, well then, is it called paid because you're paying 2 of these cogs? It's just really overly, stupidly complex that it didn't need to be. It's like, hey, and it would be even better, because again, I don't know if you can only pay 2 cogs to do an action of your cards, or can you pay 2 to do another basic action? Like, if I want to hire 2 staff members, can I use my basic action, then pay 2 of these to then hire another one? I don't think so. I think you can only do it to do one of your cards, which is fine. I don't care if that's the case, because a lot of these staff cards allow you to do other things anyway, like train a youngster or build a stadium infrastructure. It's like, so your staff allows you to do some of the other basic actions, but you just have to, it's the rule book is awful. Like, I absolutely hate it. It actively makes me never want to set this game up, because they also do explanations of things that you're like, well, how do I, like, whenever you're setting up the game, it's like, okay, so where are these tokens? Because some of the iconography is showing a blue X in the match consequence. It shows a blue X. Well, I don't have a blue X. I have this thing, that's showing a blue X, but nothing is showing this red X on the side. So what's that? Because I can clearly see that these are the injury markers. So where's that? And then on this scenario sheet, it was like, hey, place the fan base stat marker on the space on the fan base track. And for me, I was like, is that another sheet? Is that something that's supposed to be on the scenario? Until it finally dawned on me, oh, this is the fan base stat marker. So that's what gets set to 1. It's those things, because in my experience of reviewing and playing board games, it's gonna be these little things that prevent people from enjoying a game. It's gonna be those little things that our minds cannot rationalize to be like, oh, okay, that's why they made that decision. So then it makes it frustrating. Why couldn't you just make the match example not dumb? Like, why couldn't you? It was even like a full page example, and it made it worse. It's like, why couldn't you just do it correctly? Why couldn't you hire someone to actually? Why couldn't you play test? I know this was sent out to reviewers, or did you explain it to them beforehand? Or did you just do it a select reviewer base and be like, oh man, I hope they get it. Oh, we'll be here standing by for questions. No, we're not going to have regular people play it. God, fuck those regular people. Like, they bought our game, and it's just, it's so frustrating. Now, all that to say that eventually it clicks, especially if there's forums. And I've always been a advocate against the consumer should not be the ones to do your job for you. It should not be up to the player base to make your game work or to explain your game. It should have been clear from the get-go. With that being said, I do think this game is a lot of fun. I think there is a lot in this game. Like, once you understand what to do on your turn and how a full round works, it does become relatively simple. The Monday, I like the week structure. I think in the prototype versions it was originally 8 weeks. I think they knocked it down to 6. I think that's smart. 8 weeks of this would have been a little much. There's a lot, like Monday. I mean, these are all the board meetings. I actually really like the concept of board meetings, that you have a board of directors as the one running your football team, and they kind of have their own belief system, whatever, how they sway, how they vote, and they have their special abilities. Some of them actually have actions, others have just straight up features. That it's very, very simple. You draw a board, and this would be for every player, but again, phase like Monday and the match day, so the beginning and end of the week are actually supposed to be simultaneous, and then the Tuesday through Thursday, that's when you take turns doing an action. But yeah, the board meeting, you just roll a die, and it's like, okay, this is 2. Twos for my people are yellow, blue, yellow. So yellow wins, that's the majority. So, and if it doesn't happen to be a majority, which it only can be if you pick a group that happens to be like on a 3, it's blue, yellow, red, then you just re-roll for free. And you just do what it says. And this game actually has really good dice mitigation. I like the fact that your fans are kind of how you sway their vote, which is kind of cool. Thematically, to me, it's supposed to represent this is the way the board of directors is going, but the fans have like a negative or positive reaction to it. So then they're like, actually, that was a leaked document, so we really meant to do this. We meant to not increase season ticket prices, which is how, board of directors go anyway. So yeah, I like it's just simple. You see what it does. None of them are like devastating. It's not like, oh man, they want to kill the players. If you're injured, you get shot in the back of the head in the back alley. It's like, no, like, okay, you kind of lose some money, or you gain something, or nothing happens. I just think it's very quick and a nice thematic tie-in. And there's a bunch there. Like, that's a bunch of board meetings. And then you go through the actual weeks. I really, really like the fact of the sponsorships and how you have a lot of options there. Like, this game doesn't feel tight in any way. It's not like you're sitting here going, God, I really need money and I don't have any money. It's like, no, you just run an ad. It's one of your actions. You're very limited on your actions, but Tuesday, it's like, okay, I know I'm going to need money for my Wednesday and Thursday action, so Tuesday I'm going to run this ad for Moloch Monthly and just gain 5 money. I like the fact of thematically you're putting in ads that run at your stadium. Your stadium board's really cool that it's like, hey, that's the ad board. You want to run a third ad, then you spend the money to be able to put in a third ad board. And you're limited to those. But your ad boards, it's like, do I want that special ability right now, or do I want to increase my revenue a little bit and money right now? I think that's really cool. And then my favorite part is the actual t-shirts, what you're wearing. I think that's neat, that you only get to do that once. Like, you can't just be like, anyway, we're going to start wearing different... Yeah, it's only been 3 weeks where we said we were going to put your brand on our t-shirts, but we're going with someone else. That's a big decision, because then you choose it, and that's going to give you some money and some income, but also you get to do the special ability. And I like that. It feels really balanced. My very first game, I went with the World's Greenest Grass, and that was probably my closest game, which got me the two score ahead. Like, I went ahead and started the game with an advantage of 2 scores, so that was neat. So I like the sponsorships. There's a bunch of them. I like the fact that you can only... It's kind of weird. I do really wish this game had a freaking board, like, to organize it, but I kind of see why they didn't. Like, a central board would have been nice just to organize the cards, but each player has their own 3 individual player boards. It just would have made it look a lot nicer. Like, it could have really went all out, made a player mat with, like, actual design, and to where it kind of, like, you have, like, an ad or, like, a sponsorship, like, telegraph thing where the sponsor cards go, and then maybe a desk meeting to put the staff on, and then maybe a pitch or a locker room to show the players. They really could have done more in presentation. As of right now, they didn't. I mean, I think this game looks like a mess table presence wise, that they really could have just sectioned it off and made it look a lot better. But yeah, but I do like the sponsors. There's a bunch of them in here. They all have a special ability if you want to make them your t-shirts, and then for the most part, I think they all give you... Well, not... Okay, so in case they all give you 5 money, but... Well, sorry. Oh, that's not true, actually. I lied. Some of them do give you some basic income. But generally, they're going to give you 5 money. Some of them you can't do ad reads for. The staff, I think, is really cool. This is also where they kind of threw everything in the kitchen sink, was where it's like, hey, they all have this bonus or special ability, but this game also has set collection. It's like, why? Yeah, it's like, and it is relatively simple. It's just color-coded, so if you have, like, 4 trainers in your staff, then that's 6 points at the end of the game. It's just something there that just can get you more points, because whoever has the most points is, like, the better manager. I really like them. They all have special abilities. They all have actions you can do, some bonuses. I think that's really neat. There's a corgi as your pet, so this game is already amazing for having that. But yeah, and so, like, some of them are actions, others are just passive abilities called features. And for the corgi, it's if any effect decreases your fan below 3, ignore it. So you have a static, like a permanent 3 fan base because you have the dog. I think that's cute. I don't know if they have any other pets. It might be the only one. Yes, that is the only pet, but it counts as like a... I don't know. It counts as an orange. Whatever. But yeah, so the staff is really neat. I also like, kind of related to the staff and like players, I also like the fact that, like, because it is easy to get money, it's also not as punishing when you have to pay for maintenance. Like, where it's like, okay, you have to pay your players, pay for stadium upkeep, and pay your staff. I do like the fact that it's not, like, super brutal. Based off what this looked like at the beginning from the prototype, it looked like it was a lot more aggressive. And now, for staff and stadium, it's not that bad. But, yeah, so that is... yeah, so that is kind of the staff. And then you get to the players, which is where a big crux of this game lies, which goes into the matches. And after you get through the horrendous example of how to understand matches, it does go relatively quick. It's not as gamery as I would like it, because for me, like, I've been a sports fan all my life. Like, I played baseball for 10 years, and then been into football. Like, played football. I did play soccer once, played basketball once. I was the best at baseball. Played football for a couple years, and then I actively watch football now. But so I would have liked it to actually be like a soccer match, or at least maybe a little bit more thematic, or maybe because I'm not as into soccer, I'm not able to kind of like really draw the theme out of it. But it works well. It is a mini game in this game. It's not that is not really the focus, even though you're hiring staff and you're hiring players to win these games. You are on the sideline. You're the manager. You're the GM. That's like, yeah, I put that team together, but I didn't play, so I didn't really have an active role in it. The players are the ones that came in, but it does feel good that whenever you're like looking at the team you're up against, and it kind of tells you what they're about, that you try and plan for that. Now, what's intriguing is you do pick your division. So Division 3 is obviously the weakest division, like until you go to Division, and you can play in any division you want. There's 4 divisions: 3, 3-2, 2-1, and 1. And so for like Scenario 2 Rivalry, I had to pick a division, a red opponent that was in a division higher than me. So I played in Division 3, and so they were from 3-2. Now, and it says if possible. So, for example, if I played in Division 1, then I couldn't pick anyone higher, but that would already be pretty hard in and of itself. And I really like that. I like that you get to be in a division and kind of see how it goes, as well as you're the league, like the club league. It's kind of cool that as you're going up, you roll these 3 dice, and it's like, 3-1-1. So all teams of blue move up 3 to show that, hey, they won their matches against whoever, and then red won their matches and green won the blue teams won, and then the green and red drew. They had a draw. So that's kind of nice that it's not just like you versus someone else. You don't have to play all those teams. They do kind of move up the board. If you lose or draw, but then blue wins, they could pass you. But yeah, you get to kind of get an idea, which makes sense. You study the team you're coming up against. You have all week to prep for it, and you're like, okay, I'm playing against Steel Chester FC, so how do they play? And it kind of gives a general idea of, hey, they're average, but they have like 1 star player, and it's like, they're playing in a 3-5-2. Where are they going to put him? Okay, if I put my best defender, if they're saying that they have a strong right wing, then I'm gonna put my best defender over there and hope that that's where they're gonna put him. And for the most part, you can look at it and get relatively correct. If you're like, okay, they have a weak back, central defender, I'm gonna put my stronger attackers there to score me goals. I don't think there was really, like, even that final rivalry match, like, I was up 4-1. And I was like, yeah, okay, that's pretty much over. Oh, no, they have 3 central attackers, central midfielder attackers. I have 1 defender, so they just scored 2. Like, if I didn't have that defender there at a 2, I still would have blocked 1. But if I didn't have a defender there, if I decided that I was going to have an attacker in the middle, then, yeah, they would have scored 3 and tied the game. And that's where it is really intriguing. It's not necessarily a chess match. It's not necessarily like super involved. Like, you're not taking actions and maneuvering them around the board. You have some abilities that allow you to spend their fitness. Like Hernandez was, hey, spend two of these fitness. But it took me some time to be like, okay, well, I can train him and then put another one on him at the beginning of the match so he can score. Because he has the strong shot, so that's just an ability he has that I could spend to score a goal. And he was my star player, like 100%. That he was the best. He had the best leg on my team. He was my forward. So then I had to get people to kind of build around him, and I think that that's really cool. That is something that you would do in a game like this. It happens in NFL all the time, where it's like, okay, we have this quarterback, we need to build around him. And every team kind of does it. Or, yeah, every sport kind of does it, where you have your strongest player and you kind of build the team around him because he's your best player. Hernandez ended up being my best player, and so I ended up getting someone who had Born Leader, that I can spend 1 fitness to place 2 on any player board. Before that, before I had the leader who was able to work with him with the strong shot, I had Braga, which was a quick pass, and I could spend a production to place 1 on him. So it was like, oh, okay, well, I already get to place 1 on. That special ability allows me to place another one, so therefore he can do a strong shot. It is kind of a small engine building with your team, and I think that that's really neat. I was able to utilize special abilities to gain me more fitness, so that thematically had them being trained. The Dr. Morris, my director, every time I hired a youngster, I actually got to see what they were. Otherwise, you normally just have to hope that they pan out if you just hire a youngster. But I was able to draw 2 and actually see what they both were, and I could have hired both of them. Or I could hire either one and then discard the other. But then to help with that, I got another trainer so I can start training. So it all is an engine for you to utilize your team to the best of their ability. And that was just, I mean, I only had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I had 7 players on 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, with 10. So 7 of my 10 were actually named people. The others were just regulars. But I mean, there's a bunch of extras, like a bunch of players that I didn't get. Probably the defining factor was the one I was looking at that allowed me to actually swap between attacker and defender. Because normally when you put them on the actual field, it's like, nope, this is a defender, so he has to be there. And they have to be in the middle, and they have to be attacking or defending. Which gets a little weird whenever you have these blanks. These blank tokens, or these blank, tokens are supposed to be for, most of the jersey numbers are relevant to 2 to 11. And you can't have anyone of the same jersey number. But there are some that you can get that are like jersey number 86 or something, and that's where these are supposed to come in. But these are also supposed to come in if they're youngsters. So if you're putting a youngster in, you swap out a number with this. But what's confusing is kind of like, okay, if I hire a youngster who's a defender, and I swap out, let's just say this 8 attacker that was originally an attacker, and that becomes my youngster defender. Well, let's say I flip that youngster, and he's like, oh, he's actually number 2 now. Okay, so now number 2 becomes him. Does that 8 come back as an attacker, or how do I make... It's just like... So they're not 100% clear, because it seems like, at least for setup, that you're supposed to have you're supposed to have a balance of at least 5 defenders and 5 attackers at the very beginning. And the blank jerseys kind of throw a wrench in that. It's like, I get it, if I hire a bunch of defenders, then those numbered people are going to be defenders. So are the others attackers? Because you can't flip them from attacker to defender unless something tells you to, and I think that's also kind of weird. It should be, here are these numbered players, those are what they are, but everything else should be fair game. I should be able to be like, okay, well, number 8 isn't assigned to anyone. I want to make him a defender this time, or I want to make him and maybe that's the case and I'm just completely missing it. But maybe the rule is if they are numbered, you cannot swap their stance unless told otherwise, and so if they're not numbered, you can. That would make sense. But luckily, the way it worked out, I mean, Hernandez scored me 1 goal, and I won a lot of my games by 1 goal. And I think that's really cool. I wish that the games were so close, but maybe they compensated, because it seems like the fact that I get special abilities and the opponent doesn't, that I wonder if they did that because you don't know how they're going to place. So you can use your special abilities as much as you want, but if you don't place your people correctly, they could still outscore you. Maybe that's why. Because I was going to say I wish the opponents had special abilities that they can use, but then that might be a little bit too busted. If they're like, oh, hey, they actually get to score twice. It's like, well, there's no way I could have known that. And maybe that's why, because you don't have perfect information. You have some, and I will take some over none. I think that if you were just being like, okay, yeah, you're facing Steelchester FC, and you flip it, and it was like, oh, okay, they're heavily in attack, and they're 5-5-4. 5-5-4. They're a 3-5-2. Oh, okay. Well, I didn't plan for any of that, and they scored 15 on me, you know. It makes sense that you would be able to research the team you're facing for that week. I think it is really, really cool. Yeah, I mean, and then the scenarios that you play if you're in a solo game, the rivalry one was really good. Like, I didn't have a problem with it once I figured out what the hell the setup meant. It weirdly, I didn't think it was going to matter, but facing off the rival that I was like planning against, like it just kind of got into that sports mentality that I have, where I'm like, I don't want to lose to this team. Like, I've won out. It's not even about points anymore. It's like it's not about, you know, me sweeping every team I played against and then losing. I just can't lose to this one. In fact, had I lost to that one, I actually would have. I think I still would have won, but barely, because I had 45 points. I think I would have knocked down, because I got 3 extra ones by actually beating them. I would have been maybe 42, so it would have been a lot closer. If it had knocked me down under 40 because I lost to them, that would have sucked. So I do enjoy that, and yeah, so there's a bunch of different stuff. There's a lot of cards, a lot of special abilities, a lot of stuff going on. And that's why I really hate this rule book. Like, it's just, and there's not a fucking player aid, or there is, but it's just icons. So it's like, okay, your player aid means nothing. There's a player aid in the back, like right here, and that's how I knew the additional paid action was pay 2 green and choose any of your cards, resolve its action. That's how I knew what a paid action fucking was. But it's formatted fine. Like, you're able to go pay. I mean, it feels thick, but it's like a big rule book. I mean, and it goes step by step. Here's what Monday is, then Tuesday. Here's all your action, then the match. Excuse me. But when you have any extra questions that are outside of this rulebook, they just do not give it to you at all. And if they do, it is explained in the worst way that it makes it. You have more questions afterwards, and I think that is a very bad design on the rulebook. Yeah. So here's God, another negative for this game, and this is one that I'm starting to find. Well, it's like, it depends. I'm finding it more and more with established companies, but non-established companies kind of have it right. This game, if you went all in, was actually relatively cheap. Like, you got a lot of expansions for the price point, which was awesome. Because at the end of the day, it's really just cards. I mean, the Kickstarter stuff was dual-sided boards, which is not dual-sided, inset boards, and then this pitch is actually like a felt, kind of, sort of, so it's just kind of a little bit nicer. And then these wooden tokens, which are way better than just colored discs that they were going to be. So those are nice. The deluxe components are nice. This tray, as a freaking dice tray, it's like, why even, like, if you're going to offer this as an add-on or as an extra stretch goal, you know, why even offer that if it's the most useless tray ever? Like, you basically, the roll, you have to kind of like, okay, oh yay! Instead of, like, what you want to do with a dice tray and roll it, well, that one actually stayed, but it's like, haha, now it's staying, fuck it. But there we go, now it bounced out. I don't know. It's just, and it's also like cheap plastic, so that's kind of whatever. You don't really need that. Just roll it on your on your table. My point being is, this came with a lot of expansions, and they gave zero shits on how you store it. It is this size box trying to fit tons and tons of cards and wooden pieces and 4 individual cardboard player boards each. So four pitches, 4 stadiums, 4 whatever boardrooms. There's just no room at all. It has like that much lid lift, and it's awful. And it's like you went on a GameFound, and you didn't consider a Game Trays insert or a better insert than nothing. Like, it is 2023 in the board gaming industry. Grow up and actually offer your players a way to store your game. Every smaller companies get it right. I don't get why Fantasy Flight and CMON and Portal and all these older companies that have like the fan base, why they decide to just kind of be like, you know what, figure it out. It's so stupid. And some people might think, oh, I don't really care, I just bag everything anyway. It's like, okay, well then this isn't a negative for you. This is a negative for me, and I absolutely hate it. I hate going and looking at a game and be like, man, I kind of want to play that, but I don't want to sort through 30 bags of stuff. And here's what makes it even worse. Is, like I said, there's a bunch of expansions in this game. Like, bunch of like smaller expansions, like the stadium expansion, which adds new objective cards and unique stadium infrastructure tokens, more staff, and more board meetings. Well, also, these expansions don't have any real way to differentiate, at least nothing that's super obvious. So you bag, okay, fine, you bag these up separately. That's the stadium bag. Then you have international players. Well, that just comes with a bunch, 45 unique players. Okay, great, more players, that's awesome. No real way to tell them apart. If you accidentally mix them together, cool, have fun sorting that out. Then you have the International Cup, which adds an International Cup board, more opponents, stuff like that. I mean, fantastic. More opponents to play against, an actual tournament kind of style. That's amazing. Again, individual bag. Unexpected events. This comes in with a reputation board and unexpected event cards, new board meeting cards, a reputation board, separate bag. And then the solo campaign, which comes with its actual campaign, new objectives, board meeting, solo cards, yada yada. So to do an actual overall solo campaign, separate components. You have to store all that in a box this size. I think that's horrendous. That is archaic and is extremely frustrating. So, I mean, all these expansions are fantastic. Like, that gives this game so much legs. Like, so many legs. Like, Unexpected Events is awesome because it's like, oh shit, like, my player got in... he threw a chair off a balcony, or we accidentally hired Antonio Brown and we forgot that he was a psychopath but he wanted to play soccer. It's stuff like that, or the solo stuff, or international players, or the cup. I think that's all excellent additions to this game to really make it feel like the soccer, the board game. There's no other game out there that's like this that I can think of. Like, there's not a lot of sports games out there that are like based off real sports anyway, but this is the game to play. But they just messed it up by just not giving a organized way to play it, and I think that's awful. So, with all that being said, on a scale of 1 to 10, I don't know. Because the negatives I have for it really aren't actually with gameplay. It's, I'm trying to think of negatives that I actually have for gameplay. And I don't really have any. It's all outside of the game. It's the horrible storage solution. It's the horrible rulebook. It's the horrible examples in the rulebook, which makes this game stupidly confusing at times. It's the... that's really the two major complaints. Horrible storage solution, and then the rule book not being crystal clear. But those things are extremely frustrating. But are they enough for me to dock points? I mean, they definitely are. So, and at the same time, is this a game that I'm going to want to break out every single time? Do I even want to play it with more people? Like, this is a game that I would max out at 2. Because I don't see the point in 3 or 4. That just means more hands in touching players that I might... touching players. Hiring players that I want. Or scouts. Not scouts. Or staff. Or sponsors. Because you don't fight against each other like you fight. You don't play against each other. It's not like you're rivaling soccer teams, managing soccer teams that will face off against one another. I mean, you kind of are in the same league in that you play against these computer components, and so if you lose one of your matches that you're like, oh yay, okay, they lost and I won, so I get to go up 3 and they don't get to go up. It's like it's an indirect competition. But yeah, I would max it out at 2, but this would primarily be a solo game with a very select group of another person, because not everyone loves soccer or cares even the slightest about sports. I think, and I haven't tried these expansions, so I can't really talk on it. I think the solo campaign might be fun to do for the channel. If you guys want me to do separate reviews for these other expansions, like the Unexpected Events, International Cup, International Player, and Stadium expansions, like I did for Endless Winter, let me know. Even if you don't, I might do it anyway. And then if I'm still liking the game by then, might do this solo campaign. But until I play those, I think where I'm going to sit at 11 is a 7 out of 10. I think that's where I'm at. These expansions might kind of do what Endless Winter did, or what the Endless Winter modules did for me, and bump it up quite a bit. I am going to keep this game because I don't have any other game in my collection that's like this. It is really cool. If I ever get one, I do have a friend who actually is really into soccer, but I haven't talked to him in a while. But yeah, that is where I'm comfortable. I was entertaining an 8, but if ratings mean anything to anyone, then yeah, the insert and their rule book. I thought Portal got better at rules, but I guess not. So yeah, that is my thoughts on 11, the Football Manager board game. 7 out of 10. Let me know what you think of this game in the comments below. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you. Hey everyone, thank you for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you would like to see more of my content, go ahead and click that subscribe button and the bell to be notified whenever I upload any new content. If you feel like supporting the channel, you can go ahead and click that Patreon link to be taken to my Patreon, and any help is truly appreciated. Other than that, stick around for any other run-throughs or reviews or cool top 10s or whatever I feel like putting on. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.